Hi, and welcome to another SecretEntourage.com video. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Brian S. Cohen, author of What Every Angel Investor Wants You to Know, also the chairman of the New York Angels and the individual that funded and brought Pinterest to life. So welcome to the show, Brian. We appreciate you being on.
Great to be here.
So, I read your book, and we're definitely going to talk a little bit about angel investing and how that plays into entrepreneurship in general. But before we do that, for those that are watching that perhaps don't know you, can you tell us a little bit about your story? I know that at the beginning of your book, you share something like a piece of advice you got early on, and it was that anything outside of working for yourself is pretty much slavery. So I thought that was pretty cool. So can you speak a little bit about how you got started yourself?
Yeah, I think there's a little of me in everybody. There's a sense of who you are when you're a young person as to where you think your destiny is supposed to go. We're given as much input as we can by our teachers, by our families, by our friends, that somehow you're connected to everyone in a context of being in business and going to work and getting a job. I was very much like that. I found myself in that same course. In mine, it was a little bit different. I was supposed to be a doctor. I decided not to do that. That is entrepreneurial in a sense, obviously, because you're independent. But I had the opportunity of running into an extraordinary man, my professor, a real mentor, by the way. And the word mentor is being abused all over the place. A mentor is someone who's remarkable and special to somebody who cares deeply for you. Most of the accelerators, integrators, I call them estivators, pretty much just provide advisorship. And if you can get to the level of mentorship, I think that's a good place, to find a mentor. That's great. But I found one. I found a professor of mine, Will Buckbinder, called him Bucky for short. And he was an older gentleman, very wise, built a number of businesses, and he looked at me after I had done some interesting work in grad school and said, I need to give you the best advice I can give anybody. And he said, never work for somebody. It's the closest thing to slavery. I don't think the word entrepreneur had been invented yet. He could have just simply looked at me and said, just be an entrepreneur. But the French hadn't imported the word yet back in the early 80s. It wasn't in vogue as it is today. And so from my standpoint, I took his advice and launched my life, my career, and followed that tenet to a T. Built businesses right after that, sold them, built more businesses, sold them, and at the same time built a great family, great kids. And got into angel investing.
So what was your biggest business that really got you your name in terms of becoming an entrepreneur and then that allowed you to move into angel investing? Was there a particular business that stood out to you as kind of your pinnacle or your life achievement?
Yeah, the business of family. My wife of 30 years and my three beautiful, amazing kids. I know that sounds a little bit off the track associated with the building of a business, but in some sense, your life is a business and it's a complete one. You try and interact all those elements together so that they sweetly work together. Not easy, certainly something very hard to work on, much more difficult than just starting your own company, because life is actually a business to me. And I think of it like that, and I think about organizing it. But from the standpoint of, and I don't think about it in terms of using, I think you used the phrase, got you your name. I purposely didn't put my name on the door because it wasn't about me in business. It's all about the customer. It's all about the team that you have in place. So it was an agency I started with my wife. It became one of the world's largest PR tech agencies, TSI. We handled almost all of IBM Corporation for almost 12 years and all of Sony Corporation for more than a decade, doing their PR strategy all over the United States, and launched just about every major internet company there was during the big internet boom. I sold that company back in 1997 in a bidding war, which is, by the way, for all your listeners, the best way to sell a company. Actually, the only way to sell a company is in the bidding war. And retired wonderfully in 1997 when I just turned about 40. So it's a beautiful thing. That was the company, that was the moment, that was the opportunity. And my kids were young enough that I stayed home to be a full-time dad.
So after you retired, outside of being a family man, you decided to take on angel investing and becoming very involved in helping other startups. Why?
I don't think it's something you decide. I think it's something you gravitate to. There's enough people in the United States who can fit the mold of being an angel investor, but not many that fit the mold of being a professional angel investor. Because anyone over a certain amount of dollars associated with the SEC regulations as an accredited investor can be an angel investor. But not everybody can be a professional at it because it takes enormous amounts of commitment. The chances of success are so tiny, so fleeting. And if you're not really driven to do it professionally, you shouldn't be doing it at all. So I gravitated to it because I had clients, friends who were starting companies, and they asked for advice. And then they started asking for money. Angel investing was still relatively new when I started it. As I've said, in the past, I started doing it when it was still called stupid investing. It hasn't graduated much past that. But within the context of angel groups and the wisdom of the talent of the people in those angel groups, that's where it's gotten its greatest strength because of the sharing of the intelligence of a lot of entrepreneurs who sold their companies. So I started doing it intensely, and certainly the New York environment was the biggest petri dish possible to do it in. And the New York environment now is legendary. And now being a part of the early stages of the early startup community in New York and helping build it, there's nothing more honorable to me. Nothing can come close in the honor that I have of helping these young entrepreneurs succeed in the New York startup scene.
And now with your latest book, What Every Angel Investor Wants You to Know, you really bring out a lot of great points. And I want to kind of talk the rest of this interview about some of those points, as well as, what people should know about angel investors, as you talk about in the book, or kind of an overview of it. One of the things that stood out to me is you said, the ideal of developing a business concept through a passion-driven mentality is a false ideal. And one of the things that I liked about that is that you say you don't always have to follow your passion when it comes to building a business. That's kind of contradictory to what many people in the past have said, and I agree with it. But a lot of people would say, well, you always have to have passion. So can you maybe elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I'm a practical businessman. I see that there are customers that have problems and there are problems that need to be solved. Either you've got the smarts, the knowledge, the ingenuity, the desire to learn how to solve that problem on a practical business basis, or you don't. And that doesn't involve passion. Yeah. People say, but you're not going to really construct 24 hours a day unless you've got the passion. I'm a businessman. I want to solve problems. I'll figure out how to manage and support my life, but still solve those problems for the customer and the opportunity to build a business around. The problem with the word passion is that most kids, when I lecture, don't know what it is. And they keep asking, is this my passion? And they get confused between something they're interested in and their passion, and then they question whether or not they're totally passionate about it, and they don't strive for it. So passion in many ways gets in the way. And it's a problem emotionally. Because after about 6 months, they say, well, I'm not really passionate about it. Boom. All of a sudden, it gets dark and dreary in their life. And they lose all inspiration to solve the customer problem, which still exists. But they get involved too emotionally with that word passion. I think it gets in the way because of that.
So I actually agree with that. And I think that, from a young people's standpoint, I agree that they're very confused as to what they believe to want or not want. And their interest changes a lot. So here's a good question or a good segue into, should people then get money early on? You share something that says, make sure you know what you're getting into the book, as there's a lot more headaches that come with it that most people know. So when should people get into it, and what should they know about it?
I suspect you're talking about when they should start raising money.
Correct.
Well, you hold off as long as you can, but your business plan tells you when you raise it. Money raising is just part of a strategy of what a company needs to competitively succeed in a marketplace. If you can get by and the marketplace isn't too demanding on you for doing too much too fast, too quickly, where you're going to need money to fuel the evolution of your business, then great. Continue to develop your own business through your own ability to get traction and find customers. Find customers, find customers, find customers. Satisfy your customers. When your business plan strategy finally says, I've got to grow, I've got to hire people, your business tells you when you have to do that. It isn't necessarily yourself. There is a tendency today, of course, with the enormity of the amount of money that's available, they can just go out and raise it. And unfortunately, sometimes you raise it too early and you raise too much or too little. It isn't a strategic part of how you're building your business. It's just, hey, I'm going to raise some money. How much? Oh, I don't know. 750 sounds good. Maybe $1.5 million. And it's not done as part of a really well thought out strategy. So bootstrapping, everybody talks about it. It's not a badge of honor. You bootstrap